Welcome to I Am Creative, the podcast where we embrace the boundless world of creativity. I'm your host, Hala Citron, here to guide you on a journey beyond the traditional boundaries of art. Whether it's how we dress, how we speak, or how we connect with the world, creativity is at the heart of every moment. Join me as we explore the endless possibilities, celebrate our imperfections, and unleash our creative potential. Ready to breathe in inspiration and breathe out limitations? Let's dive in and meet our inspiring guest for today. Hello, everybody. So wonderful to see you. Always so excited for these conversations. So here we go. My inspiring guest for today is Lisa Cooke. She is a holistic creative art therapist from the sunny Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia. She offers group workshops and one-on-one sessions to help people connect to their creativity and unlearn everything they ever were taught in school about creativity. Lisa believes art is a tool to help us express the unexpressed, to reflect on our life and gift ourselves the time to go within, to heal, grow, and become more aware. She combines guided meditation with creative art activities to get people out of their busy minds and into their hearts. And you know, everybody, we need this now more than ever. So Lisa, welcome to the space.
Thank you, Hollis. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. So before we dive into the meaty bits, would like to ask you a fun fact that you could share about yourself, please.
Well, it's not actually about me, but I did a fun fact about creativity just before we jumped on. And I found that 72% of people get their creative ideas in the shower. And I thought, I can so relate to that. And for me, it's not only in the shower, it can be on the toilet, it can be washing the dishes, hanging out the washing. And I just thought that was a really cool fun fact that I related to a lot. I feel like a lot of my ideas come in the shower and I'm always like, oh my gosh, I need a pen. I need to get out and write this down. So yeah, it's quite interesting where our creative mind comes in, you know. So that was a fun fact I found today.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's such a great starting point because it's kind of when we turn our brains off, right?
100%. And that's me. The mind is quiet, and that's when the creativity flows. And I know that with the work I do, that's the gift of creativity. It allows that mind to take a back seat, and then the creative juices can flow because we're quiet and we're going within. Yeah. So I really resonated with that.
Yeah. And it's like we're not fixating. We're not like I know for me, I can hyper fixate. And then when I do that, I'm like, well, there's so many different options. There's this and there's that and blah, blah. And then there's a lot of rambling that goes on. And that's pretty exhausting.
Yes.
But everything that you're talking about is kind of within that relaxed state. So before we get to the first question, then I guess my question before that is, do you have notepads or sketchbooks or anything randomly around the house, or like an audio voice recorder to capture the ideas as they come in?
All of the above. So it's funny, sometimes my creativity can flow really quickly and there's a lot kind of coming through, especially if I am really relaxed. So the voice audio recordings are my best friend. A lot of the time I will get ideas when I'm out and about as well, or even in the car. So I'll pull over and quickly do a voice recording. I have lots of journals, so lots of random journals around the house that I tend to go to and write things down. Sometimes it can come just before I wake as well in the morning. So I always have a pen and paper by the bed. So yeah, it's quite interesting, especially if I'm working on a project and I'm developing a new workshop, just say. that's usually when these ideas come through. So I need to have things on hand so I can actually write them down and remember them, because sometimes you don't remember. It's like, oh, what was I thinking again? I thought, I would remember it, and then it's gone. So yeah, so I use all of those tools to write them down.
So good for everybody to know and remember. These little things make such a difference,
Yeah.
because again, in totally relating to this, the idea pops in so strong and I get excited, and then it'll pop out. And then at the
Yeah.
most random times, if it does come back in, I could be talking to someone, then all of a sudden just say like sponge. And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, has nothing to do with you. It's just me. I just need to say it, and I need to get it recorded in some way.
Yeah. I've also got lots of notes. I use notes on my own iPhone. So that's another, and I title it and then keep adding to it. If I've got a creative idea that I'm working on, I title them. And then every time I have another idea pop in, I'll go back into that note and add to that list. Because sometimes with a lot of books and journals around, I always forget which journal it's in.
Yes. Yeah.
Through.
Yep.
But having the notes on the phone, it kind of keeps it a little bit more orderly, I guess, to find. Yeah.
It's real. Yeah, it's real. Keeping yourself, yes, where you can retrieve
Retrieve.
easily. Retrieval is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in
Cool.
to the first official question, which is, Lisa, how do you define creativity?
I feel creativity is our greatest gift. It's a gift that we have been given, and it's highly, highly misunderstood. I feel at school we're kind of taught that if we don't want to be an artist, or we're not good at art, or we don't get A's in art, then there's no point in pursuing creativity. But creativity is our truest form of expression. It's who we are. It is how we talk, how we dress, how we speak, how we move, how we cook, how we garden. It's not just based on art. And I feel it's a tool that we have been given to cope with the complexities of life. I feel a lot of processing happens when we create, no matter what that is. And just like what we were talking about at the beginning, when we're busy in our mind and in that doing sense of, just the doing of life in our brain, we get stuck up there, and it really takes a toll on our body. And I feel creativity is that tool that helps us to calm everything down and to also come into the heart. If we're constantly in the mind, it's going to be very busy, very active, keeping us in that kind of like a circle of doing. But as soon as we come into the heart, we start to feel. We start to really hear our soul speaking. And it quietens everything down if we give it time. A lot of people will say, I don't have time to create, or I don't have time to draw, or whatever. But we have to make time for it. And I always think of this saying, because I have a very busy mind as well. So I always think of this saying, if we don't make time for our wellness, we'll be forced to make time for our illness. And that to me is what creativity does. It helps us see what's on autopilot. It helps us see if we've got a pain in our shoulder that we've been ignoring for 6 months because we're busy. As soon as we stop to create, we start to hear our body speak. We start to hear us speak. So for me, creativity is a gift. Simply, it's a gift that we take for granted, I feel.
So much was just said there.
Yeah.
And it truly was, because that line that you just said, if we do not take time for wellness, we will take time for illness.
Yeah.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, it catches up with us.
Yeah.
It just catches up with us. So, okay, take us on this journey, please,
Mhm.
because I know when we spoke previously, there's so much where you kind of speak about this. You actually did get sick at one
Yeah.
point.
Mhm.
You were very shy. You were afraid to speak in public. There was a lot of, you didn't see yourself as like you said in the beginning, as a creative in
No.
general. And we are obviously on the same page of everything, as you said, that creativity is within everything that we do. So
Mhm.
please take us. You said you started your spiritual journey at 38 years old,
Yeah.
and you had to be brave. So take us back to when you were a kid, teenager, wherever you want to go to kind of take us to this point, please.
Okay. So, yeah, I was brought up Catholic, went to Catholic schools, and didn't really have a spiritual connection as such. It was just kind of something that we did, I felt. And then as I kind of grew up, I decided to explore, what I thought spirituality was really. And that led me to meditation. And meditation really helped me to basically calm my nervous system. I was quite an anxious child, very, very shy child. As you said, very hard to speak. I would struggle to speak with, a table of two or more people, and I'd freak out. And it took courage for me to really start exploring that side of myself and asking the questions, why am I like this? I felt I got quite curious around my behavior and my patterns that weren't working for me anymore. And I felt like I had so much to share and so much wisdom inside me because I spent a lot of my time listening. But I just couldn't physically do it. It was this fear of being judged or criticized. And I felt that art and creativity helped me to overcome those barriers. So when I could create and get past, feeling judged by other people, it gave me the courage then to do it in other areas of my life. Art and creativity helped me actually nurture myself. It helped me nurture all those parts of me that I kind of left behind in childhood. We have incidences that happen to us that we think don't affect us, but they actually do. It can be something as little as someone telling you you're not creative, just say. And that sticks with you. And then we start to believe that. And that was a belief that I truly believed in myself. And once I started sort of exploring that and realizing it was a lie and that I was actually creative, there were all these other areas of my life where I went, oh, I have that belief as well. Where did that come from? How do I heal that? How do I overcome that? And all of these little incidences that happened in my life really just brought me back to who I truly am. It was almost like my true authenticity before life kind of happened to me came back. And I feel that creativity was really that nurturer that I needed. It helped me to nurture myself. When you start to create and you haven't done it for a while, you'll be very critical. It's really this beautiful dance that you have with yourself because your mind will be very critical about what you're doing. And if you can learn to talk back to that while you're creating, you can learn to do that in your life. And I always sort of like to say how you do art is how you do life, because that's what it was for me. When I would create, it would teach me, the stories that I had on repeat. It taught me how to have patience with myself, how to speak kindly to myself, how to express all those things that I couldn't express as a child. So I had very suppressed emotions. That's pretty much what caused majority of my anxiety, because I felt I couldn't freely express. I couldn't cry. I had memories of, stop crying and, hurry up and get on with it, those types of things. So when we have caregivers that, it's not their fault, it's just the way that they were raised, right? But when we have that passed on to us, it's really hard to feel those emotions and feel safe. So I kind of feel like I was brave in really challenging myself in a way and getting curious through creativity and through the meditation and my own spiritual growth. So it was kind of, they went hand in hand for me. And I feel like that's what I teach others, to use these things as a tool for our overall well-being. So yeah, it's been a big journey. And it still continues, you know, it's a beautiful journey that keeps going.
Well, because you're challenging yourself, I mean, that's the way we expand is
Yeah.
by continuing to grow and push ourselves and do these things. Words that you said that really stuck out to me were fear, curious, courage, nurture, belief. When you put it within the context of you believe what is being told with you to you, especially in words, explore. And when you took the time to explore to realize where were these beliefs coming from,
Yeah.
brave and express.
Mm.
So many words kind of like intertwined in there. I'm curious to what did you do job wise prior to what you're doing now? And illness, when did that illness kick in? And was that a pivotal point for you to be like, enough?
Yeah. So I have a corporate background. So I worked in a typical office setting. I did that for about 25 years. So for me, it was all about, you know, routine and structure. And I quite like that. Like that's still a part of my life that I still do enjoy. Um, but there was this burning sense inside me that I had more to share, that I had more to give, but I didn't believe in myself yet. So it took me a long time to kind of unravel and heal and decide what brought me joy, because that wasn't bringing me joy anymore. You know, I got to the point where I wasn't going anywhere in the job that I was in. It was very safe, very secure, paid very well. I was very good at it, but I was miserable, miserable. You know, even it was nothing to do with the job. It was me. You know, I had outgrown it. I felt like my personal life and all the tough work that I was doing inside didn't match my life on the outside. But I was so fearful to leave that job. It was almost like, oh, I can't even explain the fear. It was so ingrained in me that if I left that job, I would have nothing. You know, that's the thought process. It was all these thoughts of doubt that were coming up for me. And I literally had to get to the point where I mean, the first thing that happened was I fractured my ankle at work. How does that happen in an office?
How did it happen in the office?
I got pins and needles from sitting too long in my ankle, and I went to stand up, and I had absolutely no, I couldn't put any weight on it, and I just rolled my ankle and went straight over. So that was the first kind of thing that happened to me. And then I started getting all sorts of migraines. I probably suffered with them for quite a number of years, but they started to get a lot worse. I started to get RSI in my wrist and my elbow. So there were all these signs that my body was telling me it's time to change. But I just couldn't make it. It was almost like I just needed someone to come and pull me out and put me somewhere else. For it to be my decision was a really big one for me. But I ended up at that time, I was seeing a psychologist for other things. And I went to my psychologist, left work, went to my psychologist. And she said to me, "So, how's work?" And that one question just opened up this massive explosion of stress, sadness, all these beliefs that I had. And it was just that catalyst for me. And I cried for about 3 days after that. It was just continuous. I just had this constant sobbing. Oh, my battery's going to run out. I'm just going to quickly plug my computer
Okay.
in.
Totally
Nothing
get
like
that.
nothing like the
You're
present.
live, everybody.
So after having kind of that meltdown, I guess it was, I kind of call it a breakdown to break through. You know, I had to break down to break through. And I really started thinking about, well, I am miserable. Why am I still doing this? Why am I still putting myself through this? And it took me a few months to kind of really decide what I was going to do. And I was trying to go back to work. After all this, I was trying to stay safe and go back to that job and convince myself that I would do that and then do something on the side. And I was kind of doing that anyway. I was doing stuff on the weekends and doing workshops on the weekends. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And every time I thought about even just opening that office door, my whole body would just tell me no. It was a full body reaction I was having. The thought of even getting into my car and going into the office to drop off my things gave me so much. It was dread. There's no other way I can describe it but dread. I was done. I was done. There was nothing that I could do, say, be to make this situation work. So I knew.
I just laughed.
Yeah. This is how bad it had to get for me.
But
Right?
I laugh because your body was just like, no.
No.
Like, how many ways do we need to say this? No.
And I was stubborn. I was holding on to that security. I was holding on to that, this is all I have, those beliefs that this is what I'm good at. What else are you going to do? Yeah, so my body told me what I was going to do. So I remember the day deciding and telling my husband, that was a big one as well, telling my family that I'm resigning. I've never, ever resigned from a job like this without a plan. I had no plan. I had inklings of, my dream, but I had no idea how I was going to implement that. And I had to learn to trust myself. I had to learn to back myself. This was the first time I really wanted to step out on my own and not do things for other people. I really wanted to do it for me. And that was scary. That took courage for me to put my heart out there to be received by other people and not knowing what the response would be. But anyway, I trusted that, and meditation helped me really envision that and see myself in that light, if that makes sense. It's almost like when you have a dream, you can't quite see yourself there yet. So all the doubts kind of tend to play out instead. But meditation kind of helped me stay on track with that. And I would visualize what it would feel like to be in a job where I felt I was making a difference in the world. That's truly what my heart wanted. My heart wanted to express and to feel free. I didn't want to feel contained. I didn't want to feel like I had to abide by other people's rules. And I realized throughout all my jobs, I was really trying to be creative in all of them. Even though they were office jobs, I was trying to be creative. And in my last job, especially, it was very corporate, very structured. And every time I tried to be creative, it was always, no, this is the way we've always done it. We're going to stick to this, blah, blah, blah. But it really stuck out to me how all these jobs have helped me along the way do what I do now. Nothing was ever wasted. I was just there too long. But yeah, it now reflecting back in all my jobs, I always found creative solutions to things. I always tried to bring fun and joy into whatever I was doing. So it's quite interesting to reflect back now on my journey and to be where I am now. If you told me, 5 years ago that I would be doing this, I would have laughed at you. I would have gone, no way in heck is she doing that. But here I am.
But even when in just this short time of us knowing each other and you talking, you were scared to talk in front of two people.
Yeah, I
So
know.
it's like the scaffolding, and I completely understand that. I've said this in a lot of my conversations. I was so shy, I would turn so purple that,
Mm.
I mean, I was always looking for an escape exit. Like
Yeah.
that was part of who I was. Like, how can I get out of this situation? And in that mindset, then you're, of course, keeping yourself smaller and restricting things that you're saying because you're looking for a quick out and you don't want to be seen. You don't want the spotlight on you. You're not expressing yourself. It's all of these ways that you're describing things. Completely understand the routine and the structure. Everybody likes a sense of routine and structure in some ways, some people more than others, but there is safety in that structure. But then when it's not allowing for the expansion and the expression and the exploration, that's when we start to feel like,
Yeah.
so
It's
restrictive.
it's restrictive and it's soul crushing. I
Soul crushing.
realized my soul was so sad in that environment. It wanted to be free, it wanted to express, it had more to share, it had more to give. And I would have all these conversations within myself, but I just didn't have that courage to share them with other people because I was super scared of being judged. It was this fear of criticism that I had. And I feel like a lot of people, I see it in all my workshops, a lot of people have this, especially if you were brought up in a home where it was highly critical, which I was, and it is something that we have to continually work on. It's not something that just goes away like that. I still have to work on it. It's something that is still being healed in me. But the more that we prove that wrong, the more that we grow, the more that we challenge that and step out of that comfort zone, the more that we grow. And I can see that I'm getting more and more courageous as I go on. It just takes that first step, that just that little bit out of the comfort zone. And then you go a bit more and then a bit more. And then, you're crapping your pants because it's so big.
You're like, yes, bring it on. Because
Kind
it's
of.
not bring it on. I don't know, but bring it on. Because it becomes, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like it's not about me anymore. It's not about
No,
Hollis.
true.
It's about the mission. It's
The mission.
about this soul, what you are here and what you are meant to do.
Yeah.
That bring on the
100%.
many shades of purple, bring on the, the doubt, the whatever, but I am going to get through this and I am going to get to that next level of expansion because it's what my soul wants,
Yeah. And
needs.
it doesn't matter what happens, the outcome, whether you flop and it doesn't work and whatever, your soul is happy that you did it. Your soul is so happy that you took that step, and then you try again, and then you do it again and again and again. And then when you finally conquer it, there's so many things that I was fearful of. And now I look back and go, I can't even remember what that was like anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like we forget how far we've come, and that's what courage is. And that's what that I think that being that heart-led, soul-led life really brings out in you. It brings out that courage and the strength. There is so much strength that I didn't even know existed in me.
Thank you for pointing that out. It is this strength, ladies and gentlemen, that we don't realize what is within. And you are going to mess up.
Yeah,
Just telling you, you're going to mess
100%.
up. You have permission. You're going, and it's the only way we can learn. It's the only way that we're going to grow is by messing up and realizing the contrast of what works, doesn't work, what we want,
Yeah.
what we don't want, what maybe we're
And
not so good at and we want to get better at.
and just being kind to ourselves. I'm still very hard on myself, I find, when I do new things. And just this last week, it's really been amplified how hard I am on myself when I don't perform to, my expectation, just say. And, but it's about being kind to ourselves in those moments. So maybe it didn't go to plan, but what did go to plan? What worked that didn't work last year? What did you do that was different that, you couldn't do a week ago? What other things went right? I always tend to focus on, the things that went wrong rather than the things that went right. But when we focus on those things that went right, it just changes your whole outlook. And I feel like you come more into acceptance. Okay, well, yeah, that bit didn't work, but that's all good. you learn from it and you grow. But yeah, that being kind and that nurturing, I've really learnt that that is the catalyst for growth. Because if we're not kind while we are growing, we're with ourselves 24/7. We're the only person with ourselves 24/7. And if that mindset is negative, or we're putting ourselves down, or we're berating ourselves, how are we going to succeed? How are we going to get up and do that again? And I always say to my clients, even when we create, if you haven't created for a while, you need to talk to yourself like you would a small child. And I feel like that's for everything that we do that's out of our comfort zone. If a child was to try something for the very first time, would you tell them that they did really bad and that wasn't good enough and you need to do better? No, you would encourage that small child. You would tell them they did a great job and you would cheer them on. We need to do that for ourselves. And that's something that I'm still learning to do. Again, it's almost like that reparenting of ourselves when we challenge ourselves and do things that are out of that comfort zone.
So, we've spoken so much about the healing aspect. Obviously, this has created so much healing for you,
Yeah.
by finding, by acknowledging, by exploring your creativity. I'd love to hear more about how you incorporate more creativity into your own world personally,
Yeah.
and then and also please incorporate what mediums, because I know that you said you always considered yourself crafty but not creative, like what mediums you started to use in order to kind of, because I know there was art stuff, visual art stuff related for you.
Yeah. So if I think right back to when creativity kind of started coming back into my world, it was actually music, not playing music, just listening to music that made me feel good. I almost feel like exploring my creativity made me just go back and think, what brings me joy? When I had that meltdown, when I left my last job, it gave me that time to really remember what things brought me joy. And music was one of them. So I started listening to a lot of old songs that, touched my heart, really. It was almost like a re-remembering of that
Mm.
joy of music. So music came into my life, and then I kind of found what was the very first? Pastels were the very first. So it's almost like for me, I had to go back to kindergarten. I had to nurture my creativity from way back then. A paintbrush scared the life out of me. A canvas, I'd have heart palpitations. Paint and sip was my worst nightmare. I hated all that stuff. Again, fear of criticism, right? So I avoided all of that. But when I spent time by myself, it was pastels and crayons that I created with, and I would use my hands. So things where I could use my hands, I felt very comfortable with. And I just started with things I knew how to draw, really, things that I remember from primary school, things I remember from high school that I loved to draw. And then I went from there to finger painting with watercolor, would you believe? Because I still didn't like a paintbrush.
Mm-hmm.
So the very first watercolor I ever did, I used my fingers and I used lots of blues and it was very pretty. And I didn't want to put anything on it. It was just this blue background. And I think because I was around other people, so I was still a bit shy to actually do something on the paper. That's how restrictive I was with myself back then. So I brought this paper home and it was just a blue piece of paper with lots of beautiful watercolors on it. And I was looking at it and I saw a whale inside this picture. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to draw a whale in there. So I drew this whale. And then inside this whale, I could see all little pattern, like mandala patterns. And I thought, oh, I'm going to learn how to do mandala. So I started doing these mandala patterns. And then that exploded into my world. Mandalas were a huge part of my creativity and an introduction to that watercolor. So then I started to do watercolor self-portraits. So I've got lots of these self-portraits that I did that were expressing how I was feeling at the time. I really connected the dots with expression and creativity. So I started to do, watercolor self-portraits, and I loved flowers. I've always loved doodling flowers. I drew flowers on all my textbooks in high school. So I worked with flowers. So I did a lot of watercolor self-portraits with flowers. And then I went to collage, and a mixture of kind of collage, watercolor, and a bit of ink work as well. Again, it was very tactile for me. I feel like I love to do things with my hand, to feel it. And then I went on to clay. Clay is another beautiful medium to work with. So that opened up another whole world of remembering, going back to really primary school days, I guess, of playing with clay. And I do all of these things in my workshops now. So it's always evolving. I did do acrylic once, but I haven't gone back to that yet. But I feel like I will. I feel like I'm heading there next. I go by instinct and intuition when I create. It's kind of like, oh, what feels fun for me to explore? Not scary, fun. What feels fun for me to explore? The other thing I love to do is pressed flowers. I do a lot of work with pressed flowers. I put that in all the clay. I put that in the artwork itself if I do self-portraits. Again, it brings back that child memory of, pressing flowers in old books and then seeing what they look like. I still get excited about that. It's the little things that excite me.
I think everything that you're saying, and I really want people to understand this because I don't feel like I can stress it enough. Just by you doing that blue background with the watercolor, that can be enough. Like, you don't have to, everybody, things can be just for you. And it's so much of what you're talking about from what I'm hearing is, it's this exploration, it's this expression, it's the joy, it's the fun, like what feels good. You knowing that you're a tactile person, and there's nothing wrong with, like, great, you didn't use a paintbrush. I have a tagline: creativity goes beyond a pencil and a paintbrush. Like, you wanted to get your fingers in there and express that way. So I love that you did this blue background, kind of just feeling what the paint did. And then when you looked at it in another time, it's like stepping away, and then you step back in and you're like, ooh, it's like this scaffolding, this journey that you went on. You're like, oh, I see a whale. Oh, I see mandalas. Oh, I love doodling. I did that when I was, young. Flowers. How do I incorporate? We're not, like you said in the beginning, we're not in our head. When we get out of our head and get into our heart, that's where the expansion is.
100%. And I feel like with that whale in particular, it created itself. I had nothing to do with that. It was almost like the art created itself. And I always find when I'm trying, the art doesn't work. Or if I'm in my head, it's just, no. I set a date with my art. I set a date with me. I put my music on. I put my oils on. I light a candle. It's a process, because it's spending quality time with myself. And I find when I meditate, there's always got to be breath and breathing before I create. So I take myself on a creative date in that way. And it just sets the scene, because if we're stuck in our head, or we're stuck in perfection, or I have to get this, or this is exactly what I want to do, you're not leaving any openness for your creativity to come through. You're not expanding, like what we talked about. There's no expansion in that. That's that rigid, corporate world that I was talking about. That's what it reminds me of. No, I want to go in. Sometimes, yes, I'll have an idea, but it will turn out to be something completely different. And I'm happy to go with that, because the art is creating itself. That brings me more joy than having an idea and it coming out, exactly the way I wanted. I find the surprise in what comes out of, especially mistakes. You never, ever make a mistake in art. It's always meant to be. And even if you don't like it.
I'm turning around, everybody. This is like a spontaneous, let me see. Love this book. Beautiful Oops.
Oh, I love that.
Have you ever seen this book?
No, what a great book.
So Beautiful Oops by Barney Salzberg. So
I
making a little
love
shout out to him. But what you're saying is, oops, a torn piece of paper, and it
Yeah,
shows that, and then what you can then what you can turn it into.
that's
Like
so
it's
cool.
it's the mouth of a crocodile or alligator or whatever. But yeah, that whole idea.
And that's exactly what you do. You go, oops. And then it's like, okay, well, what does that look like? What is that? Or what is that message? What's a lot of the time in our art, it's a message for us. It's like, what is that saying to me? And mandalas are a big one for that because it's, they'll never be that precision. They are imperfect, just like we are. And it really challenges to let go of those imperfections and all those oopses and turning them into something else. And yeah, I find I get the most joy out of that. It's exciting to go, oh, okay, it's creating itself. What's going to come out today? Yeah, and I love how you said it's not for anyone else. Don't create for anyone else but us. It's the biggest form of self-love is to create for ourselves, for nobody else, and with no agenda. Take the pressure off. And for me, it's another form of journaling. It's another form of writing. It's just without the words.
Or maybe with the words.
Yeah, I put words in a lot of mine too. Yeah.
Like maybe it is. It's kind of allowing yourself. It's like why am I forgetting what it's called, where you're just writing and it's
Like
just free
automatic
form.
writing. Yeah,
Automatic writing, thank you.
yeah,
So automatic writing, it's just opening up that space for it just to kind of flow through. And then
100%.
there's the happy surprises and all of that.
Yeah.
Sorry, my cat is wanting to jump up on here right now. He's eyeing the space.
I'm
He's like
surprised
ready to.
mine hasn't come in.
So, okay, I'd love to actually talk about the meditation aspect. I'd love to have you tell people what we talked about prior to jumping on. I thought it was very interesting what you said about Joe Dispenza, because we touched on some of Joe Dispenza's meditations. He moves his voice and makes sounds that can seem a little. I'm using my
Great.
own words to say unnerving and
Yeah.
annoying.
Yeah.
But please tell from your point of
From my
view and what
perspective.
you've kind of learned from him. Yeah.
So I was very similar. As I said to you, I've been guided to him in and out throughout my life, and I've never really gelled until now because I get it. I get what he's doing. He's almost allowing us to go deeper within ourselves. For me, those noises and the different sounds he makes is hypnotic. It really allows me to go deeper within myself and in my meditation. I feel like he knows where he's taking us. He's taking us, to a different area of our being that is full of possibilities. And we can't explore that while being who we are in as we are, because we tend to judge it or overcomplicate or question it, or we have doubts around it. Whereas I find with his meditations, it really takes you to a different space. And he's very clever the way that he's done it. It's the first time I've ever actually been able, I feel, to be relaxed enough to receive him in this way. I feel like that's before, when I tried to listen to him, I don't feel I was open enough to just listen and get past that it sounds different or it feels a bit awkward. And I feel like that's just because, meditation is a huge part of my life, and I've had lots of expansions, and I trust in it so much that it is there again. It's another gift that we've been given. So meditation doesn't have to be complicated either. My business name is Seven Breaths because I started with 7 breaths. That's all I did. Morning and night, I took 7 breaths. It wasn't a big, long, drawn out meditation. I tried doing that and I couldn't. My mind was too busy, but I could take 7 breaths. And it's not about, these big, long meditations. It's about consistency. It's about doing it all the time and every day. So for me, that's my medicine. Meditation is my medicine, and I must do it every day. I feel the difference when I don't. I respond better. I'm calmer. I feel better within myself, and it brings me joy. It makes my day start better. So there's so many beautiful meditations on YouTube. There's so many different channels that I follow. And again, I go with that joy or that instinct. If Joe Dispenza doesn't do it for you, there'll be someone else. There's always beautiful meditations out there that are made just for us. And to me, it's another form of assistance. We need all the help we can get.
We do. We do.
Do.
I feel like I want to correct a little bit about what I said about Joe Dispenza before. First of all, I love who he is, and I love what I love his story. If people do not know him, check him up. Check him up. Check him out. He is all about mind body. When he's a doctor. He was in a biking accident, and they were told he wasn't going to walk. Then he needed a operation. He did not do it. And it's something like, I don't have it exactly, but something like within a year, he was back on a bike. Like he got himself, he did what he needed to do through rehab, through a lot of mental work, a lot of visualization. Visualization was like a huge thing of how he healed himself. And he promised that if he was able to heal, that he would spend his life.
That's right.
Helping people to be able to do this and understand their bodies. And I really appreciate what you said, instead of me using the word annoying, that when something feels different and awkward, because it's something that we're just not used to, and it may kind of rub us kind of like, what is that? And some things, like you hinted to or said, not everything is for us. There are plenty of things out there. There's walking meditations. You don't necessarily have to sit and be like, kind of thing.
Just the breath.
Just the breath. Your company's name, 7 Breaths.
Yeah, that's all you have to do. And I think, again, we overcomplicate everything, right? Just like when we sit to create, I must do a portrait of something else that another artist has done or whatever. We overcomplicate. No, you don't. Play with a crayon. It's just as joyful. But it's the same with meditation. And I'm guilty of that. That's why I say it, because I was like, yep, I'm going to get back into meditation. I'm going to meditate for an hour a day. I'm going to sit on a cushion. And I lasted 2 days. I was like, nah, I can't do it. Right? So we always go too far with everything. It's in the simplicity that our greatest gifts lie. But doing those 7 breaths truly opened up. You know how we talked about before about the expansion of creativity? It was like that for me. By quietening down and just taking those 7 breaths, I would just get this random thought come in. Oh, you should try this. I'd be like, oh, okay. And then I'd go and do that. And then the next day, right at the end, I would get something else. It was almost like I found this beautiful communication with myself.
Yes.
Through doing that.
Could not agree more. It's so true. When you actually quiet your mind and when you're actually breathing, obviously everybody, we're breathing all the time, but the breathing that you are referring to is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the actual breath into your lungs.
The conscious breath. The conscious breath. We're actually making time for it. And it's not until you do that you realize how tired you are. You don't realize how tired your body is as well. We don't really connect in much with that because we're always just on, right? So when we actually sit, I did a workshop on Tuesday and it was in an office, and everyone was yawning because they're finally taking the time to sit down and to connect and just breathe. It wasn't even anything. We did a 10-minute meditation and you could feel it. I can feel the difference in the room. As soon as that meditation's finished, you feel everyone just drop, you know? It's like, ah. It's so valuable. And again, like what you said, you know, we breathe all the time, so we kind of take it for granted. It's something that we think, yeah, oh well, happens all the time. It's, you know, whatever. But when we really consciously make that time for ourselves, it's amazing what comes from it.
Well, and what you're talking about too is energy and vibration.
Yeah.
So, like you said, after a 10-minute meditation in this office space, there may have been some kind of freneticness or people like holding their bodies tight,
Yeah.
shoulders kind of up, that kind of thing. And then after you did what you did, then there's kind of like the whole energy in the room changes because
Massively.
we're all energy. And then
Mm.
I'm sure people's voices are different, the pacing of their voice is different, how they're holding their bodies is different.
And it's guard down. I feel like too, in those environments, you know,
Mm.
it's guard up. And when we meditate, like I have a lot of people that cry during meditation, and they don't understand why. It's because their heart is softening. You know, they're coming in to that heart space, and the heart is finally going, "Oh, thank gosh, you're here. I get to release. I get to feel," because we're constantly distracted. We're constantly on all the time. We're constantly doing. So yeah, when we make that time to come into our body and into, it's our heart that we're talking to when we meditate. It's the heart that we're listening to. It's not the mind. The mind has nothing to do with it. And the heart is where our greatest gifts lie. Our soul that's how our soul communicates with us. And if we don't make time for that, we're constantly in the head, and we will feel unfulfilled. We will feel stressed. We will feel small. We will feel confused. You know, it's that. It's just taking that time to get out of that busy mind. But we're wired that way. So again, it feels awkward when you first start doing it. Just, you know, like the Joe Dispenza meditations, it feels a bit strange. It feels a bit odd because it's different. And sometimes it can also be that part of our brain going, you know, no, you're not going to go do that. I want you to keep doing. I want you to, you know, look at all these things you've got to do today. What are you doing sitting here breathing? What a waste of time.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
I had to tell you, it was so funny. So, a really good friend who does soul wisdom work, and so I'd been working with her one on one, and she had me do this meditation. She said, "Set the crystals up, light a candle, walk in directions." And I'm bringing this up because after she said, "Then do automatic writing," and it
Uh-huh.
just made me laugh because what came through after I read it was, we know we don't have much time with you, so we're gonna get right to the point. And so I wrote this whole thing of this message that came through, which was very, very helpful. And when I kind of was like, "This is done," it was like 20 minutes.
20 minutes is good.
She's
20
like,
minutes is good.
take up to an hour." And I was kind of like, yeah, they specifically said, "We know we don't have time with you." Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Yeah. See? They know us best, right? Our guides know us best. Yeah, I think that's hilarious. And it's not about making that wrong either. Like I love that you can laugh about that. It is who we are. It's where we're at. Like I was at 7 breaths. I couldn't even do what you did, right? I was that anxious and that wound up and that busy that I couldn't take that time. So it's never right or wrong. It's just what it is. We meet ourselves where we're at. But as long as we start and we do it, that's all it is.
We start and we do. So, as we wrap this up, I'm going to ask you the final question, which is, we're going to see if we're going to get a little bit more expansion on the definition, but why do you think creativity is important?
For me, as I've shared, I feel like we need it. We're at a time in the world where we need to start coming in. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. They don't know how to go within. You hear that all the time, right? But what is that? And I feel creativity bridges that gap. When we stop to create, no matter what it is, we're coming in. We're listening to that heart that I was talking about. We're coming from our soul. We're not coming from the head, the busy, the doing, what the world thinks, the shoulds, the not enoughs, I'm not worthy. All those repeating patterns are all in the brain. But when we create, we really get to see who we truly are. And I feel like if everyone did this in the world, we'd be living in a happier place if we all connected in with our heart. And it's a hard thing to do because we're not wired that way. It feels different. But yeah, as I said, creativity is this gift. It's the gift that bridges that gap if we just make time for it. So for me, I feel like it's almost it's a necessity. It's a necessity that we have to bring back and celebrate it for what it is. It's very downgraded and downplayed, but there are so many things that creativity teaches us. We just have to choose to make time for
it. That is the most perfect spot to kind of choose to make time for it. So, Lisa, can you please tell people how to connect with you?
Sure. So you can go to my Seven Breaths website, www.sevenbreaths.com.au. And then I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under that as well. So it's the number 7 and then breaths. So I'm on all those platforms.
So Lisa, I am so grateful. I want to put out there and remind everybody as we're wrapping this up is think about what actually brings you joy.
Mm-hmm.
But don't actually think about it, like feel it and just do something. As we've spoken about through this whole time, take the baby steps and just do something. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. And if you like it, amazing. Just kind of find out, explore what lights you up, what makes you feel more connected to you, and connect in with your heart and get out of here. Just get out of the mind and into the heart and choose to make time for it.
Yeah, I love that. Perfect.
Such beautiful advice. Such beautiful words that you stated. Lisa, on this day before Thanksgiving in the States, I am just want to say I'm truly grateful for you taking the time to chat and share who you are. And I'm very grateful I got to meet you.
I had so much fun. Thank you so much, Hollis. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, I love it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And everybody, you know what? We have needed this. Creativity, as we have said over and over in this, is creativity has always been necessary. And these conversations, I think, we need to have them. They're more necessary than ever. So please like, follow, share, help spread the word and get it out there into the world so we can enlighten more people, so we can feel more connected to more people, and we can just really inspire each other. So I truly just want to thank you for joining us. And if you're feeling stuck in your own personal life or professional life, check out my Get Unstuck membership at imcreativephilly.com, because as a creativity doula, I'm here to help you to bring your ideas to life. It's what I do. So until next time, please explore the possibilities, express yourself, and take time to really expand yourself by doing something just for you. So wherever you are in the world, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening, and look forward to connecting again soon.